Hey everybody, this is Dr. Chris Dost. Welcome to Biblical Hebrew, Lesson 2. In this lesson, we're going to work on the 5th through 8th letters of the Hebrew alphabet. He, Vav, Zayin, and Chet. Before we begin, however, please be sure to click the like button. I would really appreciate it if you'd take the time to hit the like button on every video that you watch, just to get the word out there about this channel. I really appreciate it. And if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, click the bell to be notified of future lessons when I publish them. And if you think of it, please be sure to share the URL for this video on your social media accounts to attract other people to this channel. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the support. All right, let's get started. All right, so let's start by reviewing the letters that we've already learned. The first one is Aleph, and the upper of the two forms that you see there is the square script. It's a simple square script form. The other one, the one below it, is the Paleo-Hebrew or the Phoenician form. That's the older form of the letter Aleph that was used pretty much throughout the Old Testament period. Now, we said in the last video that Aleph does not really have a sound of its own. It used to make a guttural sound like the at the beginning of the word apple. If you actually put your hand on your throat and feel your throat constrict when you say in apple, that is actually the function of an aleph. And that is similar to what we find in Arabic today, especially in Standard Arabic. But when we read the Hebrew scriptures, or when we speak modern Hebrew, the aleph no longer has a sound, but it is associated most of the time with a vowel sound. And so oftentimes an ah sound will accompany it, as in the word ani, which we see to the left. Ani means I. And you can see that the first letter, remembering that Hebrew reads right to left, is Aleph, ani. Sometimes there's an sound that's associated with the Aleph, as in the word Elohim, for God, Elohim. Other times there's a short or a long I sound, like for instance in the word ish for man, ish. Other times we'll have an O, like in the word for food, ochel. And other times there'll be an U sound, as in the word ukal. Now, as a side note, there is another pronunciation to this word, and I'm going to go over that in my Reading Exodus 3 series in this channel. But all that to say, when we encounter an aleph in a Hebrew text, there is going to be some sort of vowel sound associated with it most of the time, either a, e, o, or u oftentimes. The second letter of the Hebrew Aleph Beit is the letter Beit. That's why we call the alphabet the Aleph Beit, after the first two letters. You can see here in the square script at the top that sometimes Beit has a dagesh, a dot. Other times it does not. When Hebrew is written in Paleo-Hebrew letters, it never has a dagesh. But when we read the Hebrew Bible, the Hebrew scriptures, we have to look for the dagesh. So when we encounter the word ben for son, there's a dagesh in that word, and therefore the beit is pronounced as a b, as in boy, ben. But in the word tov, you'll notice that the beit lacks the dagesh and therefore has a v sound, tov, for the word good. So Aleph Beit, then we have Gimel. And Gimel makes a g sound, as we see in the word gadol, for big, gadol, or gibor, for warrior or soldier. The fourth letter of the Hebrew Aleph Beit is Dalit. And this looks very similar in Paleo-Hebrew, as we said, to the Greek letter delta. And if you're interested in Greek, see my Biblical Greek channel. And this makes a D sound, d. In biblical times, there would have been two different sounds, one with the dagesh, one without, but the pronunciation system that we use today does not distinguish. And so a Dalit will always be pronounced as D, like in the word davar, davar for word or thing, or in David, David for David. The fifth letter of the Hebrew Aleph Bet, and our first one for today, is the letter He. He. And He often makes a soft H sound, like in the word happy. And we see that on the left with Hadavar, which means the word. Hadavar. Hadavar. The word. And you hear the ha at the beginning. But other times, the He will appear, particularly at the end of a word, as a vowel indicator. And when we have a He, most of the time it's going to represent the vowel ah. Ah. The He is not pronounced in this case, like in the word malka, malka. I put an H in the transliteration. You can see that right here. But the H is not really pronounced. It's malka, without an H sound. Occasionally in the Hebrew Bible, a He will be used to mark an O vowel, as in the name for Solomon, Shlomo, Shlomo, Shlomo. Next, we have the letter Vav, which is also known as Waw, Vav or Wow. Now, originally, this letter had a W sound, hence the name Wow. But in modern pronunciation, when this letter serves as a consonant, it makes a V sound, and that's where we get the name Vav from. Now, as I said, as a consonant, Vav, with our pronunciation system, will make a V sound, like in the name Vashti, Vashti, the queen from the book of Esther. But like He, Vav can also be a vowel letter, and it can be used for an O sound, like in the word for peace or well-being, shalom, shalom. And other times it can make an U sound, like in the word kum, kum, which means arise. Later in the course, I'll teach you to determine when it's a V, an O, or a U vowel. But for now, just understand that these are three distinct possibilities. Next, we have Zion, Zion, which makes a Z sound like in zebra, zebra, or in the Hebrew words zayit, meaning olive, or zera, meaning seed, zayit, zera. And finally for today is the letter Chet, Chet, which makes a rough ch sound. Be sure to distinguish between the letter He and the letter Chet. Don't worry about all the other signs that you haven't seen before. Let's just focus on what we know. So we've got a Vav, then a He, Bet with a dagesh in it, Aleph, Chet, Vav, Vav, He, Vav, Aleph. And this is actually the word. Let's take a look at this passage here in the Leningrad Codex, which is an early 11th century manuscript. So the passage that we just looked at the beginning of Esther is here, and we have a Vav, a He, Bet with dagesh in it, Aleph, Chet. Notice the difference. I just wanted to quickly show you, we're not going to get into this right now, but I want to show you some inscriptions that come from the biblical period, from the Old Testament Hebrew Bible period. And notice that the Hebrew letters are written. And this is called the Mesha stela, which comes from Moab, one of the enemies of Israel. And it's from the 9th century, and it actually mentions people from the Hebrew scriptures. Now, as we zoom in, to view the entire video, please be sure to go to my website, www.learnbiblicallanguages.com. www.learnbiblicallanguages.com.